Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really looking at something compelling. We're asking you to maybe set aside some old ideas. We're diving deep into Somalia's recent and pretty profound transformation, a country often, seen through the lens of its past challenges.
Right, a lot of history there.
Exactly. But according to the hero we've looked at, it's now forging a new future. Unequivocally.
Yeah.
Our dive today is based heavily on this really positively framed article, Somalia's Ascendance, a nation forging its future under President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, 2022-2025.
And that's built on research by Abdullahi Yabaro, a legal scholar.
Correct, a master of law. So our mission here is to unpack these key shifts, these maybe surprising developments documented in the material, trying to understand what they really mean.
Exactly. And what's fascinating, I think, is how this specific period, May 2022 to July 2025, it's presented as just this pivotal chapter for Somalia.
Yeah.
It's a story of determined leadership driving towards stability, economic recovery, and, well, a strong return to the world stage.
So we're exploring how Somalia is, as the article puts it, rewriting its future.
Pretty much, yeah, in ways that really challenge how many people might still see the country.
Okay, so let's start right there. President Hassan Sheikh Mohammud's re-election in May 2022. Historically significant, right? First Somali leader to return to power democratically.
That's a huge point, yeah.
What did that mandate really signify for the country? What direction did it signal?
Well, the research suggests it wasn't just, a vote of confidence. It was seen as a strong national mandate for both some continuity, but also for bold reform.
Okay.
His governing philosophy, this phrase, Somali heshisa dunidana heshislaa,
Which means?
a Somalia at peace with itself and the world, it laid out a pretty clear path.
Okay.
An agenda focused on pillars like security, state building, debt relief, strengthening institutions, all the big things.
And he had a specific approach. I read something about nomadic diplomacy.
Yes. That's highlighted as quite innovative. It wasn't just a catchy phrase. It was about using traditional Somali methods of dialogue, consensus building, like nomadic groups resolve disputes.
Interesting.
Yeah, using that to bridge divides between the federal regions, solve political arguments, and really build national unity.
Which must have been tough, given the challenges he inherited.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you had al-Shabaab, severe droughts, economic hardship, political fragmentation, deep-rooted problems.
Right.
But the article really emphasizes that his government came in with this ambitious reform plan, trying to shift Somalia from, fragility towards real resilience.
A powerful start indeed. Let's pivot to maybe the most critical piece, security.
Always central in Somalia.
The source highlights this major shift. A historic nationwide offensive against al-Shabaab kicked off in August 2022. What made this one so different?
This was genuinely a big change, a paradigm shift, you could say.
How so?
For the first time in decades, it was mainly Somali forces leading the fight, actually taking back territory. Not just foreign peacekeepers.
Okay, so Somali-led.
Somali-led, exactly. And backed by community militias like the Mawisli. So it felt more like a national mobilization.
And did it work? Do we see results?
The source points to concrete progress, yeah. The Somali National Army, the SNA, grew significantly from about 15,000 to over 30,000 personnel.
Wow. Doubled.
Pretty much. And there's a revised national security architecture aiming for, I think, 40,000 police officers.
Ambitious.
Very. Plus, you have elite training coming in from partners like Turkey, the U.S., EU CAP Somalia for units like the Danab Commandos, the Darwish Forces.
Okay. And equipment.
Modern equipment, too.
Yeah.
Bayraktar drones, helicopters, digital command systems, things that make a real difference on the ground.
And there was a change in the AU mission, too. ATMIS became AUS.
Right. In January 2025, AUS, the African Union Support and Stabilization Mission in Somalia, it's not just semantics.
What's the difference?
ATMIS was about the transition to Somali security lead. ASEAM is about active support and stabilization now that Somalia's forces are taking the lead. Allies are shifting more to capacity building, specialized support, less primary combat.
So more Somali ownership.
Exactly. It signifies that growing ownership. Though, the source is realistic, al-Shabaab risks are still there, the government actually proposed needing another 8,000 AU troops to keep the pressure on.
That makes sense. One detail really jumped out at me from the source material. Somali piloted attack helicopters in live combat in 2025. First time in decades.
Yeah, that's a powerful symbol.
What does it symbolize, really?
It really reflects what the article calls a new era of sovereignty and national defense. It means Somalia is starting to, Command its own skies.
Not fully reliant on others for air support.
Precisely. It sends a message, doesn't it? That state institutions are maturing, that young Somalis are being trained for these advanced roles, and that the investment in defense is actually showing tangible results. It changes the whole dynamic.
That's a remarkable shift on the security front. Okay, let's move to the economy. The source talks about historic debt relief.
Another huge story.
What are the key details? What did this unlock?
Monumental is the right word. In December 2023, Somalia hit what's called the HIPC completion point.
HIPC.
Heavily Indebted Poor Countries Initiative. It's an IMF and World Bank program. Reaching completion point is the final stage, meaning they met really tough economic reform targets.
And the payoff.
Massive debt cancellation, over $5.4 billion in relief. It slashed their external debt from, I think, 64% of GDP down to under 6%.
Wow. That's incredible.
It really is. And crucially, it reopened Somalia's access to international financial markets.
Yeah.
First time in decades.
So they can borrow again, get investment.
Exactly. Key milestones included the Paris Club creditors, the U.S. canceling almost all their bilateral debt, and just in April 2025, a big restructuring deal, about $306 million with the Arab Monetary Fund.
And the broader economic picture.
Indicators. Looking positive, according to the source. Inflation dropped 6.8% in 2022. Down to 4.3% in 2025. GDP growth up from 2.4%